With the season now halfway over, Ahsoka has felt like it's been improving with each episode so far. Episode 4, Fallen Jedi, was particularly successful at emphasizing what the show's been good at. I think we've definitely had a lot of examples of what I'll just call Star Wars dialogue, but on the whole, I've been really enjoying what they've done with the characters, their relationships, as well as the overall plot and the action. For one thing, Ahsoka's been delivering on lightsaber duels in a way we haven't really seen since Episode 3. There's been at least a good duel or space battle every episode so far, and Episode 4 had 3 duels as Ahsoka and Sabine made their way to the map, which were both entertaining fights and helped build up some of the characters in the process. Ahsoka vs. Merrick is probably the least impactful, but even then it raised a few questions for me on what Merrick's whole deal was. I was never on the Merrick is a major character reveal waiting to happen train, and instead I felt like he was probably just there as basically a red shirt, which he was, but even in fulfilling that, I only became more interested in what his backstory was. I don't think he needed to be Ezra or Starkiller or someone else to be interesting, and seeming to decrepify and turn to smoke when he was killed has spurred on speculation that he could have been a creation of or reanimated by Morgan in some way, tying into his Arthurian name origin, which I covered in a short-form lore video on my Clips channel, which I'll link in the description. Sabine and Shin's duel highlighted that even with Sabine's struggles to master Force powers, she's far from helpless. I do believe she's going to be able to develop some sort of Force powers over the course of the rest of the series, but I think the more we see her become in tune with her own past rather than just wallowing in the loss of Ezra, the more she'll be open to learning. Kanan in Rebels said that Sabine was blocked when it came to the Force, and we're seeing that in action right now. It's also nice to see Sabine and Ahsoka starting to trust each other again and develop a better relationship. Unfortunately, this also led to them ignoring what Hu Yang was very right to point out, that they should stick together. The extent to which Ahsoka was shaken by the idea that Shin may have killed Sabine is possibly what lost her the duel with Baylan, though she was already struggling at that point. And that dynamic is part of why the Baylan and Ahsoka duel was probably the most interesting of the duels in this episode, giving us insight into all 4 members of the Master-Apprentice pairs. I've really enjoyed what we've seen of Baylan and Shin so far, and this duel gave us the most insight to Baylan in particular that we've had. He doesn't relish the violence and seems to genuinely regret that Ahsoka pushes them to fight as quickly as she does, but he also has no compunction about his goals causing immense harm to anyone else in the galaxy. We don't know what his end goals are yet, but the way he talks about Thrawn as a means to an end indicate to me that he's not really there for the Empire's sake. This, paired with the fact that the Eye of Sion is a Star Destroyer-sized hyperspace ring, imply he's potentially more interested in whatever else Thrawn might bring with him, on top of being able to rebuild the galaxy from the ashes of whatever Thrawn's war will cause. I have to assume that if they're building this giant hyperspace ring, it's because they wanted to bring Chimera back, not just Thrawn. So unless they're doing this to bring something else back with them, then there has to be something useful on Chimera, since it was in such rough shape, so it's not like you're just doing all this to rescue the ship itself. But the most relevant thing we know of which was on Chimera to my recollection was the World Between Worlds entrance from the Lothal Temple, which Ezra destroyed in Rebels. If they've managed to repair or rebuild it, then that would be a reason to potentially bring Chimera back along, and it could be a potential exit point for Ahsoka after her meeting with Anakin in the World Between Worlds. None of this is to say that I think Baylan is going to turn out to be a secret good guy, but I think it's possible his views on Ahsoka as basically just an attack dog may change as she herself evolves her perspective, which is possibly something that her meeting with Anakin will help with. And that could also allow her to help shift his perspective, and therefore Shin's as well. I've always been pretty convinced that Baylan wouldn't survive the series and that Shin probably will, all of which I could of course easily be wrong about, but right now my bigger question is where his sympathies might lie when the end of the series comes. If he were to die saving Shin from what they've worked to unleash, it would certainly fit with how Star Wars often works. He already shares the title of this episode, Fallen Jedi, with Anakin, and this kind of redemption could be something that he shares with Anakin as well. I'm usually of the opinion with some of the de-aging of characters that they should just go in on casting younger actors, but I think Hayden is still reasonably able to play Anakin, so even though I don't think it looks fantastic, I probably prefer the de-aging in this case to a recast, especially given the real-world context of prequel actors and actresses finally being able to feel appreciated for their time in the series. And anyways, Anakin's dead, so he can be a superposition of all possible ages between prequel Hayden and Sebastian Shaw for all I care. I do think Balin's characterization of Ahsoka and Anakin in the duel will probably play into the framing of how this interaction with Ahsoka and Anakin goes next episode, where their roles, but especially Anakin's as a force for destruction, is going to be a major topic of conversation, so I don't think we're going to see a fully happy reunion here. I think it's very likely we see a lightsaber fight, but whether it's a genuine fight or just some sparring practice is still kind of up in the air for me. It's honestly not really clear what form we're seeing Anakin in, whether this is some kind of force ghost or potentially something more akin to Luke's experience in the cave, but I'm definitely looking forward to finding out. Those are my thoughts for now. Thank you for watching, and let me know what you thought about the episode and Ahsoka so far in the comments.